So let us look at the types of receptors in our body. So we all know that we have 5 sensory organs. So one is the eye, we have ears, okay, we have nose, we have tongue, and also we have skin. And now in the chapter called control and coordination, we need to understand what are the various ways through which we acquire the stimulus. So what do we mean by stimulus is something external that triggers you to do a particular action. That is called as a stimulus. Let me explain this in detail. So stimulus is basically a trigger that comes from outside, which makes you respond in a particular way. So as of now, you can just neglect the last one. That is the mechanoreceptor. We can neglect this because that is not there. But let us try to concentrate on the top 5 or the 5 sensory organs. So we all know that the sensory organs that we have are ears. We have 2 ears, 2 eyes, 1 nose, 1 tongue, and the whole of body is covered with skin to feel the sensation of touch. Now, each of them have something called as receptors. So what are receptors in the first place? So receptors are nothing but they receive the information. That's why they have been named as receptors. So they receive the information or the stimulus from the outside of the body and they react in a particular way. So receptors are basically the nerve endings of some neurons. So we know that our nervous system is made up of a lot of small cells called as neurons. And the nerve endings of these neurons are called as receptors. So our eye has some receptors which are called as rods and cones. We have studied this in the structure of human eye about rods and cones. Our ears have receptors known as hair cells. Hair cells are the receptors. Our nose have olfactory cells. Our tongue has taste buds, and our skin has something called as Pacinian corpuscles. But all of this is not needed from examination point of view. This is not needed. This is just an extra information. So these are the names of the cells which will actually perceive or accept the information from outside the body. Like information about smell, taste, etc. that is received by these cells. So the name of the cells are rods and cones, hair cells, olfactory cells, taste buds, and Pacinian corpuscles. But the main thing that we need to know here is what is the type of that receptor. So rods and cones are called as photoreceptors. Rods and cones are the type of the cells which will acquire this information about sight or about vision. And then photoreceptor stands for a type of receptor which acquires information about images, about what you see. Mechanoreceptor is something that acquires information about what you hear. Chemoreceptor is something that acquires information about what you smell. And the same thing is also for tongue and also for skin. Now they have other names also. So mechanoreceptor is also called as the phonoreceptor. Okay, chemoreceptor is also called as the olfactory receptor, and tongue receptor is also called as the gustatory receptor. So this is something that we need to know, and this is sometimes called the thigmoreceptor. So these are other names. None of this is given in the textbook, but we are trying to understand all of this before we get into the concept so that we get an understanding and then we can proceed to the next level of ideas. So basically, I repeat, there are 5 sense organs as we all know. And each sense organ perceives something that is different. For example, eye perceives vision, ear perceives hearing, and then nose perceives smell, tongue perceives taste, and also skin perceives the feeling of touch. So the type of so the second column consists of the type of cells that are present in the receptors. The third column has the type of receptor. So we call it as photo, phono, olfactory, gustatory, and thigmo. Now, photoreceptor is the nerve ending of a neuron which captures light. Phono which captures sound, olfactory captures smell, gustatory captures taste, and thigmo or mechano captures the feeling of touch. Now, the stimulus that we will be getting from the outside of the body is nothing but light, vibrations, chemicals in air, chemicals in food, and pressure. So when we say pressure, it's not only pressure. For example, I'll give examples for all of this. For example, light. For example, you're riding a bicycle. Okay, and then there is a truck that is coming in the opposite direction. So the headlights of the truck are very bright, so it's directly getting on your eyes. So you tend to close your eyes, or you tend to do like this. You tend to shoo away from the light. So here the light is the stimulus. If it is very bright, then you try to close your eyes, or you try to turn the other way. So that is because some receptors, which are called as the photoreceptors, are present in the eyes, which know to what level of light you can manage, or it's like the threshold, and after which you try to close your eyes. That is the whole idea. So the photoreceptors present in the eye will actually know which is like too much brightness, and then that photoreceptor will give a signal to the brain to close your eyes, or the photoreceptor will give signal to the hand to close your eyes with your hand. Likewise, for phonoreceptor, that is vibrations. By vibrations, they mean the sound. For example, if you go to a marriage function or something, for a wedding party or something, then there is very loud music. So we obviously tend to close our ears when there is very, very loud music. Or for example, when the crackers are bursting with a lot of sound, then you automatically close your ears. That is called as that is because of phonoreceptor. Again, phonoreceptor is present in the hair cells in the ears, which know like when to shut the ears, or I mean, what is the maximum limit the ears can manage. If it goes beyond the limit, you automatically close your ears. So the phonoreceptors will give the information to the brain or to the hand to close your ears. Number 3 is nose or smell. That is chemicals in the air. It need not be chemicals in the air. It also can be the smell that is present in the air. For example, some of us have dust allergy. So when we go out and when there is a lot of dust that is being given off by a truck or something, or there is some pollen in the wind, which is creating some allergy, or if you are crossing a garbage dump and you are feeling a lot of stinky smell, then you tend to close your nose with a kerchief or with your hand. So that information is given to the brain using olfactory receptors. So olfactory receptor will send the information from the nose to the brain to to tell our body, to convey our body that we have to close our nose. Next is gustatory receptor. This is an information about taste. For example, if you try to eat something which is so sour or which is so spicy, then you immediately spit it out. That information is given by the gustatory receptor. So when we place something in our tongue, the nerve ending of the nerves will send information to the brain to whether to swallow it or to spit it out. And the last one is stigmo, or pressure receptor. So this is because of touch. For example, if I touch a hot surface like a hot cooker or anything that is hot like a candle or something, immediately you take your hands off. So that is present at the tip of our fingers, which will send information to the brain through the neurons, and that will tell us whether to take it or not. It can also be when you touch a thorn, or it can also be when someone is putting a lot of pressure on your shoulder and you're doing like this. That can also be because of stigmoreceptor. So these are all the types of receptors that we know. We need to understand that receptors are nothing but the parts of our body, or the ends of the neurons, which will receive the information from outside. How it is going to react is the next topic. How the body is going to react and what is the mechanism that we have, that we will see in near future. So we just saw what are the types of receptors we have. So we have photo, phono, olfactory, gustatory, and stigmo. So these are the receptors, or these are the tip of the cells from which we acquire the information from outside environment, and we have to respond to them. If we don't respond, it's going to be really harmful for us. So in order to respond, how is this signal getting transmitted? Firstly, whatever information that we capture, that is getting transmitted in the form of electrical impulses. So the whole nervous system is made up of nerves. Nerves are nothing but the nerve cells or neurons, okay, which are the basic units of the nervous system. So the whole nervous system is made up of a lot of hundreds and thousands of neurons. So these neurons are nothing but nerve cells. Now the tip of this nerve cell is called as the receptor, in the skin, in the nose, and all of that. Now when this receptor takes an information and it has to be transmitted, it is transmitted through the nerve cells in the form of electrical impulses. This is something that we should know, like shock waves. It is transmitted in the form of electrical impulses to the nervous system. I'll tell you what it is. So electrical impulses through the neurons. So neurons are nothing but the nerve cells. So this is how it is getting transmitted. So how are the electrical impulses transmitted? What is the route that the electrical impulses are taking? That is what we are going to learn now. So the first step is done. That is the receptor acquiring information, that is done. So the pathway through which the receptor sends the information to the spinal cord, that blue color wire that you can see, wire like strip that you can see, that is called as a sensory neuron. That is called as a sensory neuron because that captures the sensory information from the senses, from all the 5 senses. That is called as a sensory neuron. See, basically everything is a neuron. We have different names to make us understand what is the function of that neuron. So as you all can see, the function of this neuron is to, the blue color neuron is to just capture the information and send it to the spinal cord. And then there is a point where there is a transmission of this impulse. Okay, as you all can see, there is a point where there is a transmission of this impulse. So till this blue color, it is sensory neuron and it is just bringing in information. Now this information should be processed. What do I mean by processed is, for example, if I'm touching a candle, hot candle, I have to remove my hand. That removing my hand is a processing. The brain or the spinal cord has to take the decision of removing your hand or maybe letting the hand be there for some time. So that is nothing but interneuron. The interneuron is nothing but a connection between the input and the output. So this is the input and this is the output. So between the input signal and the output signal, the connection is called as the interneuron, or this is also called as the relay neuron. We all know the game of relay. So when we play relay, what we do is we have a stick or something in our hand and we pass it from one person to another person. That's how the game relay works. Similarly, whatever information we get from the receptors through the sensory neurons is transmitted to the output. From the input you get it and you transmit it to the output through the interneuron or relay neuron, which has been marked as green color in the diagram. And whatever, whichever neuron that takes back the output, that is called as the motor neuron. I'll tell you why. The motor neuron is named as motor neuron because it involves a movement. Let us look at an example now. For example, I'm very hungry and I'm really wanting to have something and I'm going to the kitchen and my mom has prepared something. So it is basically in the pan. Okay. Now what I'm doing is I'm taking a spoon and I'm putting it in my mouth, but then only I'm able to understand that it's very hot. Now what happens, the receptors in my tongue, in my mouth, they will carry this information that it is very hot through electrical impulses, in the form of electrical impulses. So this information that the food is very hot will travel through the sensory neuron, okay, and it will be transmitted through the relay neuron to the output. Now in this gap, what happens? In this gap, what happens? In this green color gap is where the thinking gets involved, the quick thinking. Okay, what should I do now? Whether I have to spit that food out or should I swallow it or should I have some cool water, whatever the response. So that decision making is done in this small gap and that gap is called as interneuron. And that small gap is very well placed in the spinal cord. Now, and then the response is given to the effector. Now, the response is given through the motor neuron. For example, I'm eating something which is very hot. The response is to spit it out. I have to spit it out. Now, the motor neuron comes to the cheek cells and the jaw cells over here, and it gives an information that I have to spit it out. So this is called as the effector. When we say effector, we mean the muscles, the cheek muscles or the jaw muscles will get the information from the motor neuron that it has to spit it out. Let me give you one more example. So I am basically going for a nature walk and I'm exploring the plants. So there is a thorny plant or a cactus which I didn't notice. So when I'm walking, I'm just touching all the plants and making note of them. So suddenly I'm getting pricked by a thorn. So now this information at the fingertip, okay. For example, I'm getting blood. So I'm unknowingly or knowingly, I'm touching a thorn, basically unknowingly. So when I touch a thorn unknowingly and there is blood coming out. So this is an information that is being passed. So what are the receptors that are in action now? Now, since I got hit through the skin, there is skin receptor, which is going to send an information. And I'm looking at my finger and there is blood. So there is a photoreceptor also. So I am even more cautious because there is blood oozing out. So this information from the eyes that there is blood coming, and also from the fingertip that I have it's paining for me to get pricked. Those two informations will go to the spinal cord bundle through the sensory neurons, the blue color line in the diagram. They will capture this through the sensory neurons, and during the process of transmission, that is the green color interneuron phase, there will be thinking involved. Okay, what should I do? Whether I should suck the blood by keeping the finger in my mouth, or whether I should immediately go and search for a bandage and tie it around, or what should I do? Okay, so or should I remove the thorn if it is present in the finger? So this decision making happens so quickly in this small gap. And then what happens is this, what is the output? For example, if I want to, if I want to remove the hand and if I want to put a bandage over it, then what do I do is the motor neuron will send an information to my right hand that I have to search for a bandage. So I go and search for a bandage. So for me to pick the bandage or something, that involves the thinking of the brain. But still, for example, if I have to kind of stop this blood by holding it like this may also be the response. So now my right hand has to come to the rescue of my left hand, and I'm going to close it like this. So then the muscles in my elbow, the muscles here, they all will work together to close my finger like this and to hold on to the blood. That is called effector. Effector is always a muscle. Any type of muscle which is involved in a response, that is called as an effector. So this is the whole idea. And since there is an arc that is formed, you can see that there is an arc that is formed. There is a small arc that is formed. So this process is known as reflex action. So reflex action is something which is formed, or this arc is called as reflex arc. So reflex arc is basically the visual structure that you can see, and the process is called as reflex action. So reflex action is the immediate and involuntary response to external stimulus. You have to respond it immediately, because if you depend on the brain to think and process and respond, it's not going to be easy. So that is why reflex action is performed by the spinal cord and not the brain. So spinal cord is basically an extension of the brain. So we presume that brain does all the thinking, but the spinal cord also can do a little bit of thinking for situations where you need immediate reaction. For example, if you're learning something or if you're drawing something, then brain comes into picture. But when you have to respond immediately, it's not possible for all the signals to go to the brain and come back. It takes a lot of time. By the time you will be even more hurt with a lot of blood oozing out and all of that. So we have to respond immediately under such situations where you have to respond immediately. You depend on the spinal cord, and the process is called as reflex action, and it's completely involuntary. What I mean by involuntary is it doesn't involve much of thinking. Like you immediately react to it. For example, if there is an arrow or something coming towards you, immediately turn your head like this, and that is a very involuntary response. You don't think, oh, now the arrow is coming here, something like that. No. So immediately turn, and that process is called as reflex action. So basically, reflex action is a sudden involuntary response to external stimulus, and that is being structured using these 5 components. There is a receptor, there is a sensory neuron which is bringing this information, there is a relay neuron which processes and sends this information to the output, there is a motor neuron which takes the information back, and there is an effector muscle which knows how to react to the situation in a particular way. So this is about reflex action. So this is very, very important. For example, if I have to wake, so some of you will be thinking like, what is the difference between reflex action and normal action? For example, if I have to stand from my place and I have to go to the kitchen, then it's a more of a voluntary activity. I should think, okay, I have to stand and go to the kitchen to get some water. But instead, if there is a hot water, like if someone pours hot water on my face, I immediately do like this and wipe it off. That is an involuntary action. Because we can't depend on thinking for involuntary actions, because they also come with the price of harming our body. So this is something that we need to know, and this is the overall idea of reflex action. So this is the diagram of reflex arc that is given in the textbook. So basically the same thing that we saw in the previous presentation also. So what happens is, for example, when you touch something that is very hot, the signal is taken from the receptors in the skin. So receptors in the skin will actually take in the information like heat or pain, and they will transport it to the sensory neuron. And the sensory neuron goes to the spinal cord, and there is a connection that is called as the relay neuron. And then there is a return output that is called as the motor neuron. The motor neuron is connected to the muscle in the arm, which helps or which lets the person to know that he has to lift off the arm in order to not feel the pain anymore. So this process is called as reflex action. And as you all can see, there is a shape that is formed here. That is why it is called as a reflex arc. And this is the extension of the spinal cord. This is the cross section of a spinal cord. So this is something that we need to know. So I hope that is clear. And now let us try to understand what is meant by a synapse. So the previous thing that we saw was how reflex action is being done and all of that. So we know that this reflex action or any neural transmission for that matter takes place because of a lot of nerve cells. So each nerve cell will look like this, something on the left side. As you all can see, it will look something like this. This is the structure of a neuron. So you would know the structure of a neuron because you had studied it in 9th grade. But neuron consists of mainly 3 parts. So one is called as the cell body. So this is the cell body, which consists of a nucleus, a cytoplasm, and also some hair-like structures called as dendrites. These dendrites are the ones which will capture the information. And there is something called as an axon, which is a long stem-like structure. And also there is something called as the nerve ending at the tip. So these 3 will constitute the structure of a neuron. So what you are able to see on the board, whatever I have boxed is actually one nerve cell. So how the information travels in one nerve cell is the dendrites will capture the information. It will travel through the axon. It goes to the nerve ending. From the nerve ending of one neuron, it has to go to the cell body of another neuron. As you can see, it's a continuation process. So what happens is one neuron takes the signal. As you can see here, it transmits the signals through the axon till the nerve ending. And from the nerve ending, another neuron has to capture the signal. It has to take it to the axon, and there is another nerve ending. And likewise, it has to keep on going. So this is what this continuous transmission is what forms the sensory neuron, the motor neurons, and relay neurons, everything. Because when I say sensory neuron, it is not one neuron. It is a connection of lot of thousands and hundreds of neurons. So that happens because of this. But as you all can see, there is a small gap between the 2 neurons. When they transmit the information, there is a small gap between the 2 neurons. That is the nerve ending of one neuron and the starting of another neuron. There is a small gap. And that gap is called as a synapse. And that synapse has been magnified for us. So what all the information that is given here, that is not needed. But what we need to understand is the signal comes as electrical impulse. I'm just drawing it like this to show there is an electrical impulse that's coming. And this gap between the 2 neurons is called as synapse. You can see this is the axon, this is the nerve ending, and this is the dendrite of the another neuron. So this gap is called as the synapse. And in this synapse, what happens is very simple. E to C to E. What I mean by E to C to E is electrical impulses are transmitted into chemical impulses because there is no pathway here. As you all can see, there is no connection here. There is a gap. So in the gap, what happens is electrical impulses are transmitted to chemical impulses. And then again, the chemical impulses are transmitted to electrical impulse. So here it is electrical, here it becomes chemical, and again here it goes as electrical impulse. Again, it continues till the next gap, that is synapse. Again, in the next gap, it gets transmitted from electrical to chemical to electrical. Since this is a more of a matrix space, what I mean by matrix is there is only blood here. It is better to transport as a chemical signal rather than an electrical signal. So here there is electrical signal which is converted to chemical signal. Again, it is converted to electrical signal. And that is what is being done in the gap called as synapse. So as I just explained, this is the structure of a neuron, as you all can see very clearly. So that is the cell body, nucleus, dendrite, axon, nerve ending, and etc. Now, the part B diagram is a bit complicated, as you can see. What do they mean by the diagram? So this is the neuron. If you extend this, this is the neuron. This is the nerve ending of a neuron. And there needs to be a junction between the nerve ending and the muscle. So basically, this muscle fiber is nothing but the effector. The muscle has to move. And this nerve, they are trying to talk about the motor neuron. So motor neuron is bringing information and it has to get attached to the effector muscle in order to move. And the point of attachment is called as neuromuscular junction. And the muscle is able to move because of the energy that is stored in the mitochondria, as you all can see. So this is something that they are just trying to mention. So the junction that is formed, the point of contact between the motor neuron and the effector muscle is known as the neuromuscular junction. And here there is a lot of excitation of the energy that is being produced by mitochondria. So now let us learn about hormones. This is a word that most of us would have heard and in songs and in normal conversations and all of that. Now, hormones are nothing but the chemical messengers present in our body. So what do I mean by that? We have different types of liquids in our body. We have blood, we have urine, we have saliva, etc. So likewise, there are some liquids which are present for a specific reason. One such liquid is called as an enzyme. So we have learned about enzymes in life processes wherein we learned about trypsin, lipase, bile juice, bile salts, and also salivary amylase. So these were all the different types of enzymes. So there is one type of liquid which is called as enzymes, and there is another which is called as hormones. They are not exactly liquids, but they are chemicals which help in certain activities in the body. Now, what is the difference between an enzyme and a hormone? For example, enzyme is present in organs and glands. Okay, for example, pancreatic enzyme, that is also like trypsin and lipase, are secreted by the pancreatic gland. Okay, likewise, we have different types of enzymes. Enzymes are mostly used in digestion and other life processes. Hormones are secreted by glands. So what are called glands? Last year in 9th grade, we have learned in tissues lesson, there is something called glandular epithelium. So this is a layer of skin inside our body, which actually forms a small organ-like structure, which is called as a gland. And the glands will secrete hormones. Glands are also like tiny organs, which will secrete some chemicals, which are called as hormones. Hormones differ from enzymes in one way. Hormones can be quite slow. So hormones are usually slow and gradual in their action. They are not immediate. For example, if I place some food in my mouth, immediately mouth starts to salivate. It starts to water and saliva comes to digest the complex starch in the food. So that happens immediately. But hormones are something which take a lot of time. They are quite slow and also they are very gradual in their action. They will take some time for them to act. Now, hormones are actually produced by the gland and they are transported to the target organs. You will get to know what is meant by target organs by through blood. So hormones are produced by a gland and they are transported through blood, not to every part of the body, but to certain target organs. The target organ depends on the type of hormone. That is what we are going to see. Now, the hormones will come under the category called endocrine system. So endocrine system is, so basically we learned about nervous system. Now we are learning about endocrine system. Endocrine system will actually consist of all the hormones. And it's also called as the ductless gland system. What do I mean by ductless? Duct means wire or tubes. There are no tubes to transport hormones. That's why it is also called as the ductless gland system. So there are no tubes, unlike our blood. So blood is transported through arteries and veins and capillaries and all of that. But hormones are produced by a gland and they are transported through the blood. I mean, they diffuse in the blood. They are not transported through any tube, even arteries, veins. So they just mix in the blood and they just spread out. They don't spread out to all the parts, they spread out to certain parts. That is called as the ductless gland system or the endocrine system. So hormones are a part of the ductless gland system or the endocrine system. Now, hormones are chemical messengers which are used mainly for three things. One is growth. The other one is development. And the other one is response. So it's mainly used for growth, development, and response. So what do I mean by this? So there are certain liquids called hormones that are produced by the endocrine system in our body, which just diffuse into the blood. So they are nothing but a few chemicals. They are chemical messengers. They help in the growth of the body. For example, when I say growth, we don't grow in one day, right? We take a lot of time to grow. So that is growth. So we take some time. So basically, when you compare yourself with your 10-year-old or with yourself being like 8 years, now you have some height. But this height doesn't happen in one day. It takes some period of time, and that's the use of hormones. Hormones will make it slow and gradual. Growth means how you grow, like in terms of height, weight, in terms of muscles, in terms of also in terms of your cells also grow and some cells die and all of that. Development means, it also means cognitive development, how your brain develops, how your organs are developing and all of that. Response means how you respond to the external situations, that is called as response. So this is something that we need to do. Now, according to this, we have different types of hormones, and hormones are also present in plants and hormones are present in animals as well. Now let us try to understand what are the hormones that are present in the plants. Just a minute. There are many types of plant hormones, but we are just going to look at these top five. And also ethylene is not given in the textbook. So let us consider the first four, but we'll just give a look about ethylene as well. So now auxin. So I would like to give you keywords to understand their function. So auxin is the main growth hormone present in the plant body. So basically the plant has to grow in terms of length, in terms of breadth also. It has to grow laterally as well. So to assist the plant's growth, auxin is the name of the hormone which helps in the growth of the plant. So how does it help? Auxin is synthesized in the root and shoot tip. So first we need to understand the shoot also needs to grow and the root also needs to grow. So basically if you have a plant like this, the tip of the plant should keep growing and the root should also keep growing downwards. So both this growth is assisted by a hormone called as auxin. So auxin's behavior is always, for example, if this is the stem and here there is sunlight is coming from this direction, then this is a more of a brighter side. If you look at the screen, this is more of a brighter side, and this side which is away from the sun, that is called as the shady side. So now this is the brighter side, this is the shady side. Shady side means whichever side is opposite to the sun's brightness. So auxin is actually secreted in all these regions. Wherever you have this shady side, that is where auxin gets secreted. Auxin gets secreted. So eventually this part will elongate. So the auxin will help in the growth of this part, and eventually this will elongate and become like this. So there will be an increase in the extension, increase in the length. We will try to understand the auxin through a separate presentation. So this is the use of auxin. It helps the plants to have longer cells and all of that. So mainly it helps to bend the shoot towards the light. We will try to understand this bending with the help of another diagram. So for example, if this is the shoot and here you have sun. So auxin is secreted in the shady part, like towards this side of the stem, not this side. This side is bright. So it will create in the shade, it will be created in the shady part, and eventually when these cells grow, automatically there will be a growth and the plant will automatically bend towards the light. We will understand with this separate diagram for some 5 minutes. So auxin also promotes cell elongation, which means if there is a cell like this, the cell is extended something like this. Okay, and also for cell division, the cell splits into two, and again it splits into two more and all of that. So these are all the main functions of auxin, and also to create roots and also for seedless fruits. We know some fruits which don't have seeds. So those are produced with the help of auxin. So this is something that we need to understand. And also the next hormone is called as gibberellin, and the main functions of gibberellin is growth of stem and flower. So some of you might be wondering, auxin also helps in the growth of stem. Gibberellin also helps in the growth of stem and also helps in the germination of seed. What we mean by germination of seed is when we sow a seed in the soil, it is able to sprout into a new seedling and eventually into a new plant and then later into a new tree. So that is the function of germination. So if you sow a seed in the soil, how the seed is able to sprout and become a small seedling. So that process is called as germination. For germination to happen, we need proper conditions like proper soil fertility, for proper rainfall and all of that. So gibberellin actually ensures that the plant gets all of this and also helps the plant to germinate and actually produce a plant. Produce a seedling. Cytokinin, the word cyto means cell and kinin means division. So cytokinin is mainly used in cell division, and also sometimes it also helpful in delaying the leaf to age. We have seen some plants will actually have some brown leaves when they're very young. So that means the plant is aging, which means it's going to die. So cytokinin helps the plant to postpone this aging process and also stimulate the leaf expansion. For example, if the leaf is in this shape, so to expand the leaf and create it like it as if it has a more surface area, that is the function of cytokinin. And these are very, very important. Let us look at ethylene and I'll come back to abscisic acid at the end. So ethylene is used actually transverse growth. What do I mean by transverse growth? The sidewise growth of the plant. So that is taken care of by ethylene. And also it is a very important hormone that helps the fruits to ripe. For example, if there is a raw mango, for the raw mango to become a fruit, then ethylene is an important hormone that is naturally present in them. And also they promote senescence and abscission of leaves. What is meant by senescence and abscission means for the leaves to fall off from the tree. So sometimes there are very dry leaves, a lot of dry leaves which has to fall off from the leaves because they are dead. And that is called senescence. Senescence is like the depth of the plant, and abscission of leaves is like you're removing the leaf from the plant so that it no longer affects the other leaves. So these are the functions of the hormones. And finally, abscisic acid, this is called as the growth inhibitor. Inhibit means to stop from growing. That is the meaning of inhibition. So growth inhibitor means the abscisic acid doesn't let the tree to grow beyond the limit. So that is called growth inhibitor, and actually it reverses the growth promoting effects of auxins and gibberellins. This means that auxin and gibberellin are kind of enemy to abscisic acid. So let me summarize this. One side, auxin and gibberellin both are mainly involved in the growth of the plant. When I say growth of the plant, I'm summarizing this. So when I say growth of the plant, it actually means growth in stem, growth in roots, growth sideways, everything. So that is the main function of auxin. When I say auxin and gibberellin, when I just say cytokinin, the main function of cytokinin is cell division. And if we just try to reflect on where cell division is used, cell division is mainly needed in the seeds and the flowers. For example, you have a bud, and the bud is becoming a flower the next morning. How is it able to become so big? That is because of cell division. And if you have a seed, the seed is able to become a plant in a few months. How is it able to become? That is also because of cell division. Like one cell divides into two, two divides into four, and so on. So that is the function of cytokinin. Ethylene, one keyword I would give ethylene is ripening. Ripening means how like raw fruits are becoming like real fruits. So that is ripening. And also abscisic acid is like growth inhibitor. When I say growth inhibitor, it means it stops the growth or it hinders the growth. So basically these two are quite opposite to each other. Gibberellin and auxin, gibberellin, abscisic acid. So it might seem like contradictory, but let us understand with an example. Let us imagine there is a very small seed that is being sown in the soil. Let us imagine it is the seed of a rose plant or something. Okay. Or anything, for example, cucumber. Let us imagine cucumber. So now there is a seed of cucumber that has been put in the soil. Firstly, that seed has to sprout. When I say sprout, there should be leaves and roots coming from the seed. And that is what we call as germination. And that is being taken care by, as you all can see, by the gibberellin. So this gibberellin will take care of the germination of the seed and how the seed is able to sprout and all of that. Now there is a small seedling. Okay, so this is the small seed, and now the seed is becoming like this. There are tiny leaves from the seed, and also there are roots. Now these leaves have to grow. The shoot has to grow. That is the function of auxin that you can see from the first line. Young tip of roots and shoots, as you all can see. Young tip of roots and shoots. The shoot grows and root grows. This is because of auxin. So this is because of gibberellin, and this is because of auxin. Now the plant has grown to an extent like this, something like this. Now the plant is producing a small bud. The bud has to grow into a flower. It has to grow into a flower that is taken care of by cytokinin. Cell division, as you all can see, the cell division is being done. And also the elongation of leaves. The leaves are becoming bigger. That is also because of cell division. But any plant or tree, even coconut tree or whatever, they can't keep on growing. They should stop after a particular age. And that stopping is being done by abscisic acid. And when there are vegetables that are being produced, how they are becoming fruits, that is because of ethylene. So these are the 5 hormones that are present in the plants. So all these 5 are very important. Let us try to understand how auxin functions through a separate presentation. So let us try to understand the function of auxin a little more through this picture. Now there is a stem and there is a light coming from the right side. Okay, the sunlight is coming from the right side. Now what all you're able to see as green color spots, those are the auxin molecules. Here, what all you're able to see in the as green color, that's the auxin molecules. Now what happens is, as soon as the light falls, the auxin will start to move away from the light. So what we mean by this is, this molecule will move here, this molecule will move here, this molecule will move here, and like that. So they will start to move. So usually auxin is present at the shoot tip. Usually auxin is present at the shoot tip, but when there is light, what happens? They will hide themselves from the light, which means they will start to come here. So the stem grows faster on the darker side. Here it will grow faster as compared to the right side. The left side will grow faster. That is how the auxin functions. So usually it is concentrated at the tip of the stem, but as soon as the light is incident during the daytime, all the auxin will start to hide themselves in the shady part. Shady means the opposite direction to the sunlight. They will go to the dark side and they will start to grow. So now we understand that this will start to grow. Right, so this will start to grow. So if this is growing, automatically, if the left side is growing, the right side will also grow. It will become like this. So eventually the plant will start to bend towards the sunlight. So this is how this happens. So when there is light, there is no auxin. See, if you can see here, this side, there is no auxin. All the auxin molecules are getting towards the left side. And this left side will start to grow. So as it starts to grow, it will move towards the sunlight. The shoot will move towards the sunlight. This is what we call it as phototropism. We look at this through a separate explanation. So this is something that we need to know about auxin. Now let us learn about animal hormones. When we say animal hormones, we are going to concentrate on human beings. But of course, most of the hormones that are present in human beings are also found in other animals. Now, this is a picture which has a lot of hormones. But these many hormones we are not going to learn. Of these, there are very, very few important hormones we are going to concentrate. But before that, the whatever is given in the red color, that is the name of the gland. That is the name of the creation sites, wherever the hormone is created. That is the name. And whatever is written below them, those are the names of the different hormones that have been secreted. So in the textbook and also for this grade level, we are going to just concentrate only on adrenal, testis, ovary, pancreas, and pituitary. Of course, thyroid also. So these are the only hormones that we are going to learn. But let us try to understand that where the hormones are placed. So hormones are placed almost like mostly in the middle of the body at various places and also above the kidneys as well. Now let us try to understand the different hormones present in the human body with the help of this table. So there is a table. So basically you have glands, location, hormones, and function. And there is an adjoining diagram which actually explains you where they are positioned. Let us go one by one from the top to the bottom of the human body. In the top, we have a gland called pituitary gland, which is present in the midbrain. It is present in the middle of the brain. It's a gland called pituitary gland. And the pituitary gland location is in the brain. And the hormone secreted by the pituitary gland is called as the growth hormone. I repeat, pituitary is the name of the site, location, but whatever it is giving out, that is called as growth hormone. And as you can see, the functions, it's helpful for the 1 minute. Yeah, it's used to regulate the growth. Regulate the growth means what? So basically, most of us have a misunderstanding that regulate means you have to keep on growing. No, regulate actually means maintaining the growth. They have not given increases the growth. Maintaining means what? Basically, regulates means it is not too much or not too short. So to maintain the growth of a person, it should not be too tall. He or she should not be too tall or too short. So that is what is called as regulate. Regulate basically means that you are trying to maintain your height at a particular range. That is called as regulate. So that is the main use of this hormone. Next is it also controls the functioning of endocrine glands, which means this is called as the master of all the glands, because pituitary is like a control for all other glands also. The other glands that you're seeing below this pituitary, thyroid, parathyroid, adrenal, pancreas, all of this. So to control all of them, pituitary is like a master of all these glands. That's why they have given control the functioning of endocrine glands. These are all endocrine glands, as I told you in the beginning. This is the endocrine system. So it also controls the functioning of all other hormones. This is like a controller of all the other hormones also. So as we come a little below in the diagram, if you look at the diagram, we come a little below, we come to something called as thyroid gland that is present in the throat. And the hormone secreted by the thyroid gland is called as a thyroxin. What are the functions of thyroxin? It controls the metabolism rate. What do I mean by metabolism rate is, suppose if I eat food, how quickly is it digesting in my body? How quickly my body is able to accept that food? That is called as metabolism. It can either be respiration. How quickly my body is able to take in the oxygen. That is called as metabolism. So it controls the metabolism rate of our body. How I'm able to convert the food to energy. That is called as metabolism, and that is controlled by the thyroid gland by a hormone called thyroxin. It also brings about balanced growth. When I say balanced growth, the height should be in balance with the weight. The weight should be in balance with the muscle growth. So everything is balanced. That is also another function of thyroid gland. The third one is called as the parathyroid. So thyroid is present in the throat and parathyroid is present in the corners of thyroid. There is a gland called thyroid, and in the corners of the thyroid, we have another gland called parathyroid. And that's why it's called parathyroid. It is present near the thyroid gland, and the hormone secreted is parathormone, and it controls the calcium balance of the body. So basically the bone density. Calcium is present in bones, and how much of calcium our body has, and whether it is more or less, or whether we should control it, that is being controlled by the parathormone. Parathyroid is not given in the textbook, so no need to prepare that. Next one, we will look at adrenal gland now. The next hormone that we're going to concentrate is adrenal gland. Gland's name is adrenal, and the hormone that is secreted is called adrenaline. And also, adrenal gland is attached to the kidneys. For example, this is how the kidneys look in the excretory system. Adrenal gland is present like a small cap in the top of this. Adrenal gland is present in the shape of a small cap in the top of the kidneys, and that is the position, and it prepares the body for emergency. So what type of emergency? This adrenaline is also called as the triple F hormone, which means it either makes us to fight for the situation, or it makes us to fly away from the situation, or it makes us get frightened or get scared of the situation. For example, if someone is coming to hit you, you can either fight against them, you can fly away from the situation, or you can just stand there completely frightened and frozen. So these are the three possibilities that you have under any emergency situation. That's why it's also called as the triple F hormone. The next one is called as the pancreas. So pancreas is the name of the gland, and it is present in the abdomen, little above the genital organs. And the pancreas secretes an enzyme which is called as insulin. And insulin controls the glucose level of the blood. This is also called as the blood sugar level. When I say glucose level, it's also called as the blood sugar level of the. So, since food travels through our blood, first let us understand what they mean by this. So we all know the food that we eat will actually travel till the small intestine. The small intestine has a lot of finger-like projections called villi, which will actually absorb this food and take it to all parts of the body. So during which the carbohydrates will be converted to glucose, and that glucose is what we are trying to talk about. So the glucose that we have taken through the food. So the food that we take, especially carbohydrates, will be broken down into glucose in the small intestine. And this glucose gets mixed with the blood to reach each and every part of the body. So during which that glucose level in the blood should not exceed a particular value. If it exceeds, then it is so harmful, and that is what we call it as diabetes. That is what we call it as diabetes. And diabetes is the disease or the disorder that is caused because of an increase in the blood sugar level. It should only be put to a particular range. That is why diabetic patients are not advised to take a lot of rice, because rice is carbohydrates. So the carbohydrates will be converted to glucose, and again it will increase the blood glucose level. That is the whole point. So this is something that which we should know. So what regulates this blood sugar level? Whatever we eat, there is something that will control this blood sugar level within a range, and that is insulin, which is secreted by the pancreas. This is very, very important. And now, if this insulin is not secreted properly by the pancreas, or if it is not enough, then the blood sugar will automatically increase. During which diabetic patients will take insulin from outside the body. They will take tablets which have insulin, or they will take injections which have insulin injections. If this insulin, naturally present insulin in our body, is not able to perform the function, then automatically they will be relying on external agencies like an insulin injection or a tablet. That is very important. So the deficiency, or if it is not produced in proper quantities, then we get a disease which is called as diabetes for this particular hormone. Similarly, if thyroid is not secreted properly, then we have a disease which is called goiter. So goiter means there is a swollen neck or something. Similarly, the first one, pituitary gland, when it is not secreted properly, it causes dwarfism or gigantism. So there is an effect for all of this. If they are not secreted in proper proportions, if pituitary gland doesn't secrete growth hormone in proper proportions, then there is dwarfism or gigantism, which means if it is secreted in very little quantities, the person will be very dwarf, very short. And if it is secreted in very high quantities, so basically it should be maintained in a range. If it is too much also, the person will become very tall. You know, Great Kali. So Great Kali has gigantism. These are the examples. Similarly, if thyroxine is not produced in proper quantities, it leads to goiter. Likewise, we have something for each and every one of them. Of course, I don't think so there is anything for adrenaline, because that's how you prepare yourself for emergency. The last two hormones we are going to learn is testes and ovaries. Unlike the other hormones, these are present only in the respective genders, respective sexes, which means pituitary, thyroid, parathyroid, adrenal, pancreas. All of them are present in males as well as females. And I hope you got the deficiency also, like this causes dwarfism, gigantism, this causes goiter, this causes diabetes and all that. How do you treat this? For example, diabetes, they treat it by giving insulin injections from outside. Goiter can be cured a little with the help of iodine. That has been found, and that is why we are advised to take iodized salt. So when we take salt which has some iodine in it, so that's how they manufacture salt. Iodized salt means salt which has iodine. So when we consume salt which has iodine, it is helpful to not get goiter or to regulate the amount of thyroxine that is present in the thyroid gland. So the last two hormones are present. Testis is present only in the males and ovaries is present only in the females. So these are organs. So as you all know, testis is found outside the abdominal cavity in the males. It is like found hanging. And also ovaries are present in the females inside. These are the sockets of the organs which produce. So testis is present in the scrotum, about which we'll be learning in reproduction lesson. And ovaries are present in the lower abdomen, below the stomach region. And this produces an hormone called testosterone. And ovaries produce hormones, two hormones called estrogen and progesterone. And here the O is silent. Like in esophagus also, O is silent. So it's just estrogen and progesterone. The main function is growth and development of male reproductive system, growth and development of the female reproductive system. What do we mean by that? There is an age after which males and females will start to develop sexual growth, like mustache, having a beard, or cracking of voice, and all of that. So these are the hormones that are responsible. For example, in males, this hormone is responsible for the growth of beard, mustache. Also, sometimes the skin becomes oily, the cracking of voice, the voice becomes a little more masculine and hoarse. So these are the functions of testosterone. But estrogen and progesterone, in females, it is helpful for menstruation, for pregnancy, a lot of things. About all of this, we'll be learning in the next chapter, which is called reproduction. So with this, the idea of hormones is over.